That night with my son William was by far one of the most unforgettable and unexpectedly intense nights of my life. My name is Michael, and I want to share a story about something that happened at between my son and me. It's not easy to talk about, but I've carried it for 2 years. William is 18 now. This began a few years ago after my wife Lillian passed away. Losing her was one of the hardest things I've ever faced, and it left William and me trying to navigate life without her. At first, it was. William became quiet and withdrawn, spending most of his time in his room or out with friends. He avoided talking about his mom, and I didn't want to force the conversation. Instead, I focused on keeping our home warm and welcoming, cooking his favorite meals, leaving small notes on his desk, and letting him know I was always there. I've needed to talk. For months, he stayed distant. Then one evening while I was cleaning up after dinner, he walked into the kitchen. His sudden presence startled me. It wasn't often he sought me out. "Need help, Dad?" he asked softly, smiled. "Sure, you can do the dishes." We worked in silence, but something about that moment felt different, like a door had cracked open between us. "How was school?" I asked. "Fine," he replied without looking up. That was all, but I didn't push. Over the next few weeks, I noticed started spending more time with him, sitting in the living room while I watched TV, helping me with chores, telling me about his classes and his plans for the future. I began to feel hope that we were finding our way back to a new kind of normal. One evening we had dinner together. William had cooked a simple pasta dish he'd learned from a friend. As we ate, he looked at me and said, "You're amazing, Dad." I laughed. "Thanks, William. That means a lot." Booth's expression stayed serious. "Just wanted to say, thanks for everything," he added. Something about the moment felt heavy, like there was more he wanted to say, but couldn't. From that night on, his presence around me grew even stronger, always eager to help, always ready to talk. It wasn't anything strange, just a son finally reaching out to his father after years of But what I didn't know then was that we were heading toward a night that would test us in ways I couldn't have imagined. A night that would change the way we saw each other and the way we lived forever. There's always something to take care of. He shook his head, his gaze steady on me. "You do too much. You'd serve a break." His words tightened something in my chest. "That's sweet of you to say," I replied, trying to smile. "But I'm fine, really." At night, sleep never came. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment again and again. Was it just a kind gesture? Or was I imagining something more? Something I couldn't quite name. In the days that followed, I noticed William finding reasons to be near me more often. If I was cooking, he'd wander into the kitchen and if I was in the garden, he'd come outside and sit nearby. His compliments kept coming, each one leaving me a little unsettled. If I'm honest, I noticed myself doing the same, finding reasons to be near him too. One afternoon, as I folded laundry, he said quietly, "You make this house feel alive." I froze for just a second, unsure how to respond. "Thank you, William," I managed, forcing a smile. But deep down, something was shifting. He wasn't sure I liked it. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, that he was just being kind. maybe even making up for the distance between us after Oleana's passing. But it wasn't just the compliment. It was the way he watched me, the way he was always close, and I still didn't understand why Imarad that in return. One afternoon, I was chopping vegetables for dinner when I heard his footsteps on the kitchen tiles. I didn't turn around, hoping he'd just grab something and leave. "Need help, Dad?" he asked. I glanced over my shoulder and smiled briefly. "Sure, you can slice these carrots." He stepped beside me, moving slow, deliberately. For a while, we worked in silence. I thought maybe it would just be a normal, quiet moment, but then he stopped. "You've done so much for me," he said, voice low. I looked at them, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "After Dad passed, you took care of everything. You didn't have to, but you did." His eyes locked on mine. A pang hit me. "Of course I did, William. You're me son. I love you." I tried to keep my voice steady. He nodded, but his gaze didn't waver. "I just don't think I ever said thank you." "You don't have to thank me," I said quickly, turning back to Theis. "That's what dads do." The moment felt too heavy. I wished it would pass. Finally, he picked up the knife again. I let out a quiet breath of relief. That night, I sat on the couch with a book, hoping to lose myself in its pages. William came into the living room, Nato his usual spot at the other end, but right beside me. "What are you reading?" he asked, leaning closer to see. "Just a novel. Nothing exciting. Can I read it with you?" The question surprised me. He hadn't cared about reading since he was a kid. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part didn't want to push him away. "Sure," I sighed, sliding over to give him space. Helen in, shoulder brushing mine as he began to read aloud. At first, it felt like a moment from years ago, before things became complicated. But as time passed, I noticed his focus wasn't on the book. It was on me. When I finished each chapter, I closed it. "That's enough for tonight. Thanks for reading, Tom," he said softly. "You're welcome." He stood and headed to my bedroom. "Good night, William." "Good night, Dad," he replied. There was something in his voice I couldn't place. The next morning I came into the kitchen. William was already there. He'd made coffee and set out breakfast, something he hadn't done in years. "Morning, Dad," he said. "I made you coffee." Thank you, William," I said cautiously, sitting at the table. "You work so hard," he said suddenly. "You deserve to be cared for, too," I swallowed, unsure how to respond. "That's very kind of you. But you don't have to do this." "I went too," he said firmly. After breakfast I went to the garden, hoping the cool air would clear my head. The scent of blooming flowers surrounded me. I sat on the bench, staring at the hedges, trying to untangle my thoughts. I didn't hear him at first, but then footsteps. William approached, hands in his pockets. "Can I sit with you?" "Of course," I said, though part of me wanted to say no for a while. We just sat. The only sounds the leaves and the breeze and distant bird song. "You've been quiet lately," he said at last. "I've just had a lot on my mind," I replied, eyes fixed ahead. "Is it about me?" he asked, voice soft but serious. The question caught me off guard. "Why would you think that?" "I don't know. I just feel like maybe I upset you." "You haven't." I said quickly. I've just been tired, he nodded, but said nothing more. After a few moments of silence, he stood up. I'll leave you alone, he said quietly. I watched him walk back into the house, a knot of unease forming in my chest. He hadn't done anything wrong, so why did he still feel this strange heaviness? The days that followed felt unusual, almost as if a heavy cloud had settled over. I kept my routine going, cooking meals, tidying up, doing all the usual things. But whenever William was around, there was a tension I couldn't quite shake. One night, I decided to keep After dinner, I retreated tummy room earlier than usual, hoping for some peace and quiet. I curled up with a book, letting the soft glow of the lamp wrap me in a small cocoon of warmth. First time in days, I felt a little relief from the strange atmosphere that had been growing between us. I was just getting lost in the pages when there was a gentle knock at the door. Dad William's voice was low. Almost. Yes, I replied. Can I come in? It was late, well past the time he usually went to bed. Is something wrong? Asked, sitting up slightly. I just wanted to talk, he said. I set my book aside. Come in. The door creaked open and William stepped inside. He looked different somehow. Less like the confident young man he often seemed Tobe, and more like the boy who used to come to me after nightmares when he. What's on your mind? I asked, patting the edge of the bed. He sat down slowly, his eyes fixed on the floor. After a moment he looked up and met me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, he said at last. For what? I asked. For making things feel uncomfortable. No. I've been acting a little and I don't want you to think I'm trying to make things difficult between us. His honesty caught me off guard. William, sometimes people go through phases where they feel confused or distant, I said gently. But we're a father and son. We have to trust each other. He nodded, his eyes glistening. No, I'm sorry, he whispered. I gave his shoulder a Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out together. Nodded, and stood up. Good night, Dad. Good night, son. I watched him leave, a mix of relief and lingering concern settling in my chest. At least he had opened up. It felt like a small Still, I couldn't help wondering if things would truly go back to normal. The next morning, I woke up feeling more tired than usual. Our conversation had replayed in my mind all night. William was quiet that day, keeping mostly to his room. I thought about checking in on him, but decided to give him space. Sometimes time is the best healer. That evening, I was folding in the living room when William came in, sat on the couch without saying a word, watching me quietly as I worked. The silence between us felt heavy. You've been quiet today, I said finally, glancing at him. He shrugged. Just thinking about anything in particular, I asked, trying to keep my tone light. About us, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I froze, the weight of his words sinking in. What do you mean? I asked carefully. He hesitated, meeting me eyes. I know things have been Don't want it to be like that. I nodded slowly. I don't want that either, but we have to figure out how to move forward. A faint smile crossed his lips. We will, he said. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe things could get better. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we're standing on the edge of something I didn't fully understand. The uneasy quiet in the house didn't go away. William tried to act normal, but I could see the struggle in his eyes. The way he paused before speaking, the way his expression tightened when our paths crossed. One night, as I lay in bed scrolling through my phone, it happened. The house was still, except for the soft creak of the ceiling fan above him. A faint knock came at my bedroom door, Dad. William's voice was soft, hesitant. I sat up, my chest tightening. Yes, can I come in? It's late, William, I said, trying to keep my tone even. What's wrong? There was a pause before he answered. I need to tell you something in his voice. Madam, hesitate, okay? I said finally, come in. The door opened, and William stepped inside, his hands shoved into his pocket. He lingered near the doorway, eyes fixed on the floor. What is it? I asked gently. He took a breath. I've been thinking about what I said the other night, and I need to be honest with you. Honest about what? Asked, my heart picking up speed. He stepped closer and sat on the edge of the bed. I've been in trouble and I haven't told you. After Dad died, I didn't know how to handle things and I made some bad choices. I thought I could fix it myself. But it's gotten worse. The words hit me. What kind of trouble? His voice trembled. Money. People I shouldn't have gotten involved with. I didn't want you to know, because you've already done so much for me. I placed a hand on his. William, you can't carry this. We'll face it together, but you have to tell me everything. No more secrets. His shoulders slumped. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to let it get this far. I know, I said quietly. Buffeting it only makes it harder. We'll work through this, he nodded, wiping Athie's eyes before standing. Good night, Dad, he murmured. Good night, I replied, watching him leave the room and close the door behind him. As soon as Ash was gone, I locked the door and sat back down on the bed. My mind spinning, I couldn't believe what I had just. I wanted to help him, but I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, William was quiet at breakfast. When he left for school, I felt a strange mix of relief and worry. All day, I kept replaying our conversation in my head. That night when he came home, he avoided my eyes and went straight to his room. I wanted to talk to him again, but I didn't know where to. The weight of his secret hung in the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change. Whether we were ready or not, everything felt like it was pressing down on me. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to see William standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Can I sit with you? He asked. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Of course. Walked over and sat on the, leaving a small space between us. For a while, we sat in silence. The tension between us almost unbearable. Dad, he said finally, his voice soft, I don't want to lose you. You won't, I said quickly. But we need to set some boundaries, William, for both of us. Hannah did slowly, his gaze fixed on Thefler. I understand. I reached out, resting a hand lightly on his knee. We'll get through this, but you have to trust me. I do, he said, looking up at him with eyes full of emotion. I gave him a small, reassuring smile. Then we'll be. For the first time in a while, I felt a glimmer of hope, but deep down, I knew rebuilding our connection would take time. The days after our talk were tense but quiet. William kept his distance, and I tried to act like everything was normal, but the truth weighed heavily on me. I hoped that acknowledging the situation and setting boundaries would help us both move forward. Still, something inside me knew the silence wasn't enough to fix what had been broken. One night, I went to bed early, exhausted from keeping my thoughts from spiraling. The house was quiet, and a cool breeze drifted through the open window. I tried to let the hum of the fan lull me to sleep, but my mind wouldn't settle. At some point, I must have drifted until the creak of my bedroom door woke Dad. William's voice was barely a whisper. I reached for the bedside lamp, its warm glow revealing him standing in the doorway, his hands fidgeting nervously. "William, what are you doing up?" I asked, my voice thick with sleep. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. "I just needed to see you." I took a step. "It's late. You should be in bed." "I know," he said, stepping inside. But I couldn't stop thinking about everything. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and sat upright. "William, I've been thinking too about this. I love you, but what we're feeling right now, it's complicated. We need to keep it in a place that's healthy for both of us." His shoulder slumped, and his voice cracked. "You're the only one who's ever really been there for me. You've always cared in a way no one else has." I care because I'm your dad. That's my job. And I'm always here for you. But we have to work through these feelings the right way together. Tears glistened in his eyes. "I'm sorry. I just didn't know how else to say it." "It's okay to feel confused," I told him gently. "But this is something you'll have to work through. And I'll be here as your father every step of the way." He nodded, though I could see the disappointment in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," I assured him. "But we have to move forward, William, for both of us." And that meant something in him shifted. I stepped closer, not to cross any lines, but to wrap his arms around me in a tight, almost desperate hug. I hugged him back, feeling the weight he'd been. We stayed like that for a long while. No words, just the quiet hum of the fan and the sound of our breathing. He whispered, "Good night, Dad." "Good night, William," I replied. The next morning, he was quieter than usual, but calmer. He joined me for breakfast, and though our conversation was light, I could sense a change. He seemed lighter, like he'd finally let go some of the weight he'd been holding in the weeks that followed. William started spending more time with friends. His focus shifted back to school and his plans for the future. We never revisited night, but the understanding within us was clear. We were both trying to heal. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the porch, William turned to me. "Thanks for being patient with me, Dad, for accepting me and helping me even when I've been." I smiled, placing a hand on his arm. "That's what dads do." For the first time in what felt like forever, his smile was genuine. Moment I knew we were going to be okay.